All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. We're talking about the Detroit Lions in today's video. So, recording, this is not the best news that you want to hear, but thankfully, about 48 hours from now, the Detroit Lions will be hosting the Washington Commanders in the wild card round or divisional round of the playoffs. And I know that this is kind of a lot, and Dan Campbell has kind of said this as well. Like, we're in the middle of the circus right now. We got to go out there and perform. It looks like, according to Adam Schefter, the Lions will lose both Ben Johnson and Aaron Glenn to head coaching jobs amidst the Las Vegas Raiders news, or buzz, I should say, the New York Jets buzz. So, according to Adam Schefter, once again with ESPN, the Lions are likely to be in the market for two new coordinators this offseason. He reported this morning on Get Up, a ESPN show, that the Lions are going to lose both offensive coordinator Ben Johnson and defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, who are destined to get hired as head coaches. And then Albert Breer of the MMQB wrote earlier in the week that it would feel like an upset if Detroit kept either of its coordinators. So this, obviously sucks. And once again, this is rumor, this is speculation. I've been saying it on this Lions channel and my main channel, Will Upton, for a while now. I think Aaron Glenn 100,000% is gone. I just really do. Whether it's the Saints, whether it's the Jets, whatever, I kind of do feel like Aaron Glenn is going to not be the DC for Detroit next season, and that's fine. He did a really phenomenal job. They're the 7th best scoring defense this year. They're a top 5 rush defense for like back-to-back seasons. But Aaron Glenn, a lot older. I think he's like mid-late 50s than Ben Johnson, who's like 38. So I think most people kind of knew or assumed that Aaron Glenn would ultimately get hired or leave Detroit. Folks, before we get any further into today's video, hit that like button, hit that sub button for daily Lions content over here on the Lions Den, new channel name. Thank you for all your support. If we could try and get this one to 100 likes, folks, that would mean the absolute world to me. So obviously the bigger deal is Ben Johnson. And the Lions, since he became the offensive coordinator in the last 3 seasons, since 2022, they've been the best offense in the NFL in points and yards. Just almost every single offensive metric this year, the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL, putting up 33.2 points per game. And obviously, number 2 in passing, Jared Goff obviously had a phenomenal season. 6th best rushing attack in the NFL, 146.4. And so there's a lot of moving part. And until I started covering, or at least paying attention to the coaching cycle in the NFL, it was all kind of very confusing. And the reason I'm not stressed about the Detroit Lions is because of their internal options for both offense coordinator and defensive coordinator. Now, I was just talking Seahawks, right? And Mike Macdonald, the reason I'm even mentioning this, let me go full circle. Sorry, this is confusing. Last year, the Baltimore Ravens went all the way to the AFC Championship, right? They lost to the Kansas City Chiefs. Well, 2 days from now, it's going to be January 18th, and the Detroit Lions are playing a divisional game. So hopefully, obviously, the Detroit Lions win that game. Well, Aaron Glenn's still the DC for Detroit. Ben Johnson's still the OC for Detroit. So whether you're the Las Vegas Raiders or the Chicago Bears or the New Orleans Saints or the New York Jets, that's another week of not having a coach. So that goes into it as well. But the Ravens example, Mike Macdonald was hired by Seattle after the conference championship loss. I think the exact date was January 28th. He was, if I'm not mistaken, the 8th coach hired in last year's cycle out of 9. Maybe it was 7th coach hired out of 8. But he was one of the last, he was the second to last hire. And what that means is at the end of January, they didn't have the top options. He's a brand new head coach, right? He was the DC for the Baltimore Ravens, and now he's the official head coach for Seattle. Well, he's got to hire a staff. And he was with Baltimore. He wasn't with Seattle. So he doesn't know any of these internal guys. He's bringing a staff over. He's hiring his own staff. Well, it's almost February. So a lot of these dudes have already been hired. So they went to college and they hired Ryan Grubb to be their offensive coordinator. And the thought process is, in retrospect, that was definitely not Mike Macdonald's number 1 option. So I know this is also confusing, but my point just is Detroit doesn't have that concern, or I don't have that concern for the Detroit Lions this year, because all of their options look to be internal. The only external option I've heard or seen, or I've seen rumored potentially for Detroit would be former head coach of the New Orleans Saints last year, Dennis Allen, because of his Dan Campbell connection. And we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, I was wondering this because I was starting to get a little bit worried this morning where I was like, oh my God, like I'm watching this get up and Shefty's like, yeah, both of these dudes are 100% gone. Like, oh crap. All right. So Detroit's got to figure something out. So I Googled it and I saw a really great article from Mike Payton on A to Z Sports.com. And he gave two of his best options for if Ben Johnson leaves. And I'm sure you guys know this or you've seen it on other, articles or YouTube videos. The two guys, number one is going to be Scotty Montgomery, the running backs coach. Lions love to run the football. They're sixth in total rushing this season. And it's just one of their best options, or one of their best weapons is running the game. So that leaves your running back coach, Scotty Montgomery, as one of your best options. And then number two, and this guy kind of seems like if/when Ben Johnson does leave, this seems like it is probably going to be your new offensive coordinator, and it is Tanner Engstrand, the Lions passing game coordinator. He's already had multiple offensive coordinator interviews. I think that was more last cycle and last offseason, but that seems to be the guy who's been right behind Ben Johnson, passing game coordinator, and it seems like that would be the guy that they went to. And once again, both of those two guys are internal. Now, defensively, if Aaron Glenn leaves, the three guys he said were Terrell Williams, Kelvin Sheppard, and Dennis Allen. So Kelvin Sheppard's the linebacker coach, and that would be really cool because, the linebackers, ever since I started making Lions content a couple of years ago, the Lions linebacker room has always supposedly been this weakness. And then Alex Anzalone starts doing his thing, and obviously they're depleted right now. Jack Campbell had a really solid rookie season. He's had even a better sophomore campaign. He looks to be like a rising star linebacker in the NFL, so it would make sense to go with Kelvin Sheppard, your linebacker coach. And then you have Terrell Williams, your defensive line coach. He's been a D-line coach since like 1998. And then finally you have Dennis Allen, and this was the only external hire on that list there because he has history with Dan Campbell, right, from the New Orleans Saints. And he was not the best head coach in the NFL for the New Orleans Saints this past season, and he got fired. What was he, like the first coach fired of the entire season? He is a really good defensive guy. It's kind of like, I would say it's definitely a step up of Robert Saleh, but Robert Saleh comes to my mind like, yeah, I don't want Dennis Allen to be my head coach. I don't want Josh McDaniels to be my head coach. But he's fine if he's my OC. Dennis Allen's fine if he's my DC. Robert Saleh's, I like it better as a DC. But that's it for today. Just kind of a weird ramble on video. But I wanted to talk about coordinators because you never know. It's already January 16th. You guys play a playoff game 2 days from now. I definitely don't want to be talking about coaching cycles tomorrow. We're going to definitely get into a hype preview Lions video. But yeah, this is also just stuff. Football is 12 months out of the year. I know there's a long off season, but there's a lot of small stuff that goes on in the middle of it. So that's it for today. Done. Hit that like button, hit that sub button, folks. Give me your thoughts. Who would you want to be the offensive coordinator and who would you want to be the defensive coordinator if you think one of those or both coordinators are leaving? Peace.